Okay, we're live.
Hello. Good
Hi,
evening.
everyone. Oh no, you froze.
Am I
Oh,
back?
sorry. Yes, you're back. You're
All
back.
right, great. That's probably going to end up happening a lot, but
Oh
we'll
no.
do some quick introductions. Hopefully, I stay here for the rest of the broadcast.
Me too.
My name is Elise. I am an OCD advocate. I have lived experience with OCD for most of my life. I had a pediatric onset. I'm also the owner of The Octopus, which is what my handle says below, which is an OCD advocacy and recovery shop. We make products that are meant to inspire people who are trying to recover from OCD and also advocate for what living with the disorder is really like. And I'm also on the board of directors for OCD Game Changers, which is a nonprofit that's dedicated to improving the lives of people with OCD and connecting people who are advocating for it. And Maya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Maya. I'm also an OCD advocate with lived experience. My OCD started around age 14, even though I've had like anxiety and subclinical OCD symptoms throughout my whole life. I run the Instagram account Overcoming OCD, which is my handle. Oh gosh, I don't know where to point to, but you can follow me there on Instagram where I post about OCD and other disorders, like related disorders too. I'm also on the youth action committee for OCD Game Changers, and I write some blogs. I'm on the blog committee if you want to check that out. And that's pretty much about it for me. I guess we can start answering some questions.
Yeah, so everyone's welcome to leave us questions in the comments and we'll get to as many as we can. Yeah, so just let it go. We'll just figure it out as we go along. Yeah, I guess we're both gonna spot in and out a little, but don't worry, we'll always come back.
I clicked the wrong button. I meant to click the.
All right, let's see. All right, so we do have one question already. It says, hello, can you describe the process of becoming an OCD advocate through NoCD for those that may be interested? I'm super glad to hear that you're interested in becoming an OCD advocate, and it's really great that NoCD provides opportunities for that. I personally, myself, am not an OCD advocate through NoCD. I just know them, and I've been through the program myself. So I am aware of that opportunity because once you complete the program, the treatment program, that's how you get invited to do that. I would encourage you to email them about the specifics, as I know they're always developing new things all the time, so they may have a different way into the program now. I graduated a year ago, so I want to make sure you get the most up-to-date info. I would reach out to someone at NoCD. It would be a great question to maybe bring up in the community section of the app too, or just emailing anyone that you know at NoCD who might be able to help you with that.
That's what Elise said, because I also am not an advocate through NoCD.
We're advocates and we believe in NoCD's mission, but we are not formal NoCD advocates.
Yeah.
Which is the formal program. Let's see. Are you seeing any other questions?
No, I only see the one, but feel free to ask any questions about OCD that you have.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing.
I don't see any more.
Okay, there's another. All right, good. So the question thing is working. Okay. The next question. Ooh, here we go.
There's some more questions. It's exciting.
Yeah. OCD wants to steal my happiness. Is this a normal trait of OCD?
Yes.
Maya, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's obviously not in the DSM wants to steal your happiness, but I mean, OCD is a disorder that causes so much wreaks so much havoc on your life that, I mean, yes, if it progresses, like it will try to steal your happiness. And I think most people with OCD will agree that at some point it has tried to steal or has stolen their happiness, but it doesn't always have to be that way.
Yeah, so I definitely feel that it is a normal trait of OCD. OCD tends to target things that really matter a lot to you, and those things tend to contribute to your happiness. So in a way, it is almost like it goes right after your happiness, I think. And just dealing with OCD, especially untreated, can really lower your quality of life because it takes away a lot of things that you really care about. But I'm sorry to hear that that may be happening to you or someone you know. Obviously, if that's prompting you to ask this question, there's definitely hope to steal the happiness back. And that's really important to keep in mind for anyone who's struggling. And the next question, could you talk about some of the signs that you're recovering from OCD? All right, this is a good question. Let me take a second to think.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was like starting my recovery from OCD, I remember thinking of certain things that OCD had taken away from me that I wanted back. And for me, that was mostly free time because I had like no free time when my OCD was at its worst, which probably a lot of people can relate to. So like once I was able to have some free time back and I started going to bed at a more appropriate time and waking up at a more appropriate time, I was like, okay, I think things are starting to get better because I don't feel the urges to do these compulsions that are keeping me from having free time and keeping me from going to bed at a reasonable time. So I would say maybe if you can think of some things that OCD has taken away from you that are maybe starting to come back into your life, that can be a sign that it's getting better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, Maya. I also, similarly, I feel that another sign for me is that I avoid less. So not even necessarily always seeing a decrease in the anxiety, especially right away, but I avoid things less when I feel I'm more in my recovery from OCD. A big sign that I'm not doing well is I start to avoid things that are going to make me anxious. So I think pushing through and feeling anxiety and doing things anyway is for me a really big sign that I'm recovering, because it's like my life is back in my control and not OCD's control. I'm not doing things based on what OCD tells me to do or not to do. And yeah, I have also experienced a reduction in anxiety as a result of heading farther into recovery from OCD, but that's not necessarily always that's not the end goal. We want to be able to tolerate anxiety so that we can do whatever we want to do despite how we feel. And let's see.
I think the next one says, do you mind if I read it? Or
no, I don't mind. Yeah,
you're the host.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Cool. It says, how do you accept yourself even if your OCD fears obsessions come true? That is a good and difficult question to answer.
Yeah, no, that is a very intense question to answer. And it is really hard. I think it also borders a lot on other concepts, like even outside of the OCD world, like self-love and self-compassion. Accepting yourself is really hard, whether you have OCD or not. Many people have trouble accepting different parts of themselves, but I understand with OCD that fear is even more heightened than maybe someone without OCD would be. I do have a obsession in mind of mine that I was really worried about coming true, and then now it is kind of true, but accepting that it's true it's not as terrifying now that I've worked through the OCD, if that makes sense. Like, there's like accepting it as OCD and then accepting it as like a part of you separately isn't really the same process, I don't think. And the good news is that both of those processes have been easier for me with time. So I think the first thing is like getting yourself to accept that it might be true. And then if it is true, some things you can do would be to like surround yourself with supportive people, learn more about self-love and how you can like build self-love in your own life, if that makes sense. Let's see. And then the next question, what are some tips you can give with struggling with health anxiety during the time of the pandemic? I will be fully vaccinated in a week and I'm having trouble dropping the protocols OCD created. I can definitely relate a lot to this one. I've struggled with health anxiety my whole life. It was like my first manifestation of anxiety. So when the pandemic hit, that came back in full force. And I am fully vaccinated, and I had a lot of trouble adjusting to going back out and doing things like that. One thing for me was I really tried to stick by the recommendation that I've seen some OCD specialists give, that you should try to listen to what the CDC says, not what your OCD says. So because the CDC is like the body of workers that has been giving instructions for the pandemic, and they don't do it from an OCD perspective, and they are supposed to be recommending what keeps the public safe. So I try to stick to that as much as I can, even if it makes me anxious. And I did also find, as we know, when you put yourself in anxiety-provoking situations, they get easier over time, or at least tolerating the feelings gets easier over time. And now I've been fully vaccinated for a little while. And now that I have gone out more and more, I feel less anxious when I go out. So also like have patience with yourself and compassion, because it's a really hard process to do whether you have OCD or not, but especially with health anxiety, I know how difficult that can be. Maya, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just totally agree with listen to the CDC and not your OCD. And yeah, definitely exposing yourself gradually. You don't have to like go to a huge party like for your first outing, but maybe see one friend at first, and then you can gradually increase it. And like you said, the feelings, you'll habituate to the feelings and the situation, and it'll be more easy to tolerate in the future.
Let's see. There's a lot of questions. My mouse keeps jumping forward. All right, let's see.
I think the next one is normalizing thoughts the right way to get over OCD? I would say if by normalizing thoughts, I mean, I don't really know. Maybe if you could clarify, maybe that would be a bit more helpful. Elise, do you know what they're trying to say, or I might just be blanking?
I'm not totally sure what they mean by normalizing thoughts, but when I hear normalizing thoughts, I think of like trying to make it, you're like trying to explain why you're having the thought to yourself and give like a reason for it. And I do err towards my prior OCD training, and everything I see on all the therapists' Instagrams would lean towards no, because I feel like that kind of could be a form of rumination and trying to figure out the thought, which in the long run, actually it just feeds into the OCD. So I want to say to talk to a professional about it if you are able to, but I would lean towards that may not be the best approach. It is interesting though, because we do learn to normalize the theme somewhat, because we have people like NoCD, or companies like NoCD, who are out there giving information about the different subtypes and making us realize that we're not the only ones. And I think that's really important. But if you're trying to remind yourself of that over and over, I feel like it could become compulsive.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to be very careful with things that could become compulsive.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Oh, they said, I mean, like ignoring if the thoughts are true or false, and if they're true, you're okay with it. Oh, I kind of get what you're saying.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. So I took normalizing differently. So I'm glad we specified. Yes, ignoring if the thoughts are true or false, and accepting that they might be true, but you don't know. That's great. That'll lead you to being free of having to figure out the thoughts, which will get you out of lots of compulsion. So
yeah, you have to say maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
my therapist always says.
Yeah, maybe not for sure. All right, let's see. Okay, what is one strategy, skill, or tool that helps in stopping and reducing the repetitive behaviors? For example, can't enjoy a show, keep pausing and summarizing show to make sure it was understood. One thing I really like to do is delay compulsions. It can be a little less intimidating, especially if you're just starting out with trying to decrease a certain compulsion. So to delay it would be like telling yourself you're not going to do it for 5 minutes. You're not saying you'll never do it, but you're like, okay, why don't I keep going another 5 minutes in the show and then maybe I'll like go back and summarize it. The goal would be to not pause and summarize it, but I would say like something I do is to just make the goal a little smaller so that it seems more attainable. And then after that 5 minutes, I often find that I feel capable to do another 5 minutes. And then the urge slowly goes down to do the compulsion. And then eventually you just might not do it, which is the goal.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. For some reason, when I was like first started OCD recovery, that that strategy frustrated me. I'm not sure why. But I don't know, maybe some people can relate. Now I would totally use it, but it frustrated me in the beginning. But what I used, and it's probably just because of the specific treatment center I went to, which I still do find helpful. I kept track of my submits and resists to a certain compulsion. So maybe while you're watching a TV show, you could track how many times you have the urge to do the compulsion, how many times you actually do it versus how many times you resist. And then you can get like a baseline. And then every time you watch a show, you can try to resist maybe one or two more instances and then gradually get it down.
Yeah, no, that sounds like another good skill to use. Especially, I think it would be motivating for me if I could see when I've resisted, and I would have more motivation to want to put the tally in the resist column that I gave into it. Yeah, and I am glad that you gave a different skill too, because not every skill is going to resonate with other people. I happen to like the delay one for me, but I'm glad because someone else might not like that and it really might not work for them.
You want to find the next one? Sure. I don't know where the next one is.
It's 807, Jessica.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any experience on treating body image OCD? I don't have finances or treatment at the moment. I'm not debilitated by it, but it's difficult avoiding checking with mirrors everywhere. Okay. So is that sounds kind of like body dysmorphia a little? Or just like checking about certain obsessions with like body parts, I guess? I think that's what it's asking.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like it could be towards that. And then the answer for me would be that I don't have experience with that personally.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do I? I don't think I do. I mean, I used to have like obsessions with like how my hair looked, and I would obsessively check it in the mirror, so I guess that's kind of similar. Trying to think.
I can also relate a little when it comes to being triggered by mirrors with dermatillomania. And I know that, is that how you say it? I always read it, but I never say it.
Yeah, I think you said it right.
I just call it derm, but that's compulsive skin picking for people who aren't aware of that. And I know some tips that they have for that would be to like dim the lights in rooms so that you can't see in the mirror as well. I've even heard of people like covering mirrors, but yeah, it's really hard to say because that's something I would probably want to go over with a provider. I do know that right now NoCD is running free support groups, and you don't need to be in NoCD treatment to go to them. So that might be a great resource to check out if you're not able to get treatment right now, because it is free. So, and you can do that by going on the app if you download the NoCD app. And let's see, what are some of the best ways to respond to intrusive thoughts besides maybe, maybe not? And would you respond the same exact way every time? Let's see.
I mean, there are different strategies that you can use. I mean, some people like to say to treat the intrusive thoughts like an annoying person, like, oh, I hear you, but like, I don't want to listen, get away from me, kind of, not like get away from me, but like, I hear you, but I don't have to listen to you kind of thing. Just like, it's like a nuisance that it's like a little kid screaming and like on the plane behind you, like, I can hear you, but I don't have to listen.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think I really say maybe, maybe not to myself. So for people who came on later, I did say that I run a shop where it's called the Octopus, where we have different products that are meant to help people in their recovery. So I'm looking at some of the stickers right now, and we have like the maybe, maybe not sticker, but also values over fear is another statement I use a lot, just to remind myself to move towards what I actually want to do and not OCD. Because I find maybe, maybe not kind of anxiety provoking personally. It's not one of my favorite things to say. I've also heard like, I'll think about that later. Like, yeah, I'll get back to that tomorrow. And then you never actually get back to it. Or if tomorrow comes and you're still thinking, you're like, I'll get back to that tomorrow again. It just keeps happening until you eventually don't feel an urge to do whatever it is that you think you might do. Or like, I don't need to know. That's another thing. Or I'm going to embrace uncertainty. So there's a lot of different things you can say. I feel like I can relate to this person and wanting to know exactly what you should say back, because that's how I was like over the last couple months. But there's really a ton of different ways to answer, and it's whatever. There are multiple things that may help you move forward in that moment. It doesn't have to be the same way every time.
The next one. Some days I feel like I'm getting better, then the next it comes back with hardcore. Is this something anyone else experiences? Yeah, I would say you're definitely not alone in that. OCD is like my therapist tells me, the nature of OCD is just that it flares and wanes, like waxes and wanes. And some days it'll just be harder for whatever reason. Like maybe your stress is up because, I don't know, maybe you have a difficult exam coming up or something with work or something with family, and then your OCD will rev up. And then the next day, maybe it's just so benign you barely notice it, and that's totally normal. It's annoying, but normal.
Yeah, no, that definitely has happened to me. Yeah, and also this kind of ties into the next question, which is someone mentioning that they've been in treatment for 2 months and I've had a few spikes during treatment. Is this something that can happen? And yeah, I notice when you do treatment, sometimes it actually gets more intense because you're used to using compulsions to deal with the anxiety. So then when you take the compulsions away, the anxiety suddenly seems like it's much higher, because it is higher because you're not using compulsions to lower it. So, and yeah, I definitely agree with what Maya said. OCD is very episodic, like up and down, and changes a lot. So that's definitely normal on both accounts. And also the person who had the question below that, they asked about some ways to stay positive through treatment. Do you have any suggestions, Maya?
I would say that's a tough one. I would say like think about what you're working towards. Like I kind of said before, think about what you're fighting for. Think about what OCD took away from you that you want, and yes, values over fear. Yeah. And just like remember like what you're fighting for, and just know that it's totally like normal. It's less normal to not have like spikes or flares during recovery than not. So you're totally not alone, and it's very normal.
Yeah, I agree with Maya that for me personally, tying it to my values and things that I'm hoping to get back in my life from treatment is a great way for me to stay motivated. It's also really nice to have peers that understand you. I find that very motivating to hear about other people's wins. So again, I would recommend the support groups that OCD is running. It's a great way to meet other people who are learning to manage their OCD along with you. But yeah, tying it, like I've even talked to my therapist at some point and been like, this exposure doesn't feel like it's really moving me towards something in my life that I'm looking for. Like, is it possible for me to do a different type of exposure that might speak to me more? For example, I get very nervous leaving the house sometimes. So I went into the city and had dinner with a friend the other night. And that was like a very meaningful exposure, because I wasn't enjoying myself in the beginning because I was really anxious. But in the end, I enjoyed it because it was an activity I really wanted to do. Let's see.
I think one person's asking, what's the hardest thing? I'm guessing the hardest thing about having OCD. I mean,
I don't know if they might have been commenting back to what we said or what someone else said.
That makes more sense.
I know it's hard with
Gotta look at the context.
because we don't get to look while they're happening. We're like behind. Someone said that they have a son who had improved but had few thoughts, but had to look up suggestions. I'm a little unclear on the question. If you would be able to write it out with a little more detail, that would be helpful. And then the next question, can you talk about the backdoor spike and what you think is the best way to handle it?
Yeah.
All right, are we back? You froze for a second.
Yes, I know. I thought you froze, but then I froze. Oh, no.
I don't know. Maybe I did. But can you talk about the backdoor spike and what you think is the best way to handle it? Are you familiar with the term backdoor spike, Maya?
I am. I don't know why. Like, there's few things like that I just can't fully conceptualize, and backdoor spike is one of them. So maybe if you could go first, I could figure it out.
Yeah, no, I feel this. I think it's, for me, it's like an obsession that I get nervous. I'm not going to explain it correctly, but my best attempt is with the backdoor spike is like when you do accept the uncertainty and like accept the thought. Like I hear it a lot I hear people use it a lot related to intrusive thoughts. So it's like you accept the thoughts, you accept that maybe they're true, maybe they're not, and you don't know. And then when you accept that they're true, your OCD is like, why are you not worried about this? They must be true then. Yeah. Honestly, for me, the best way I've handled that in the past is to just continue living my life. Like if I'm about to go out somewhere and I have an intrusive thought, like I've had harm intrusive thoughts. That's the one that I can think of the most with this particular problem. And I finally accepted it. And then I was like, oh my God, this means that I like want to do things like that I don't want to do. This is a lot. But I was like, I'm going out to eat now. Like I'll figure it out later. So I use the delay. I come back to the
good way to respond.
Yeah. So I would say just continuing to redirect yourself to your values, to your life as much as you can.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying by backdoor spike. It's like when you're anxious that because you're not anxious.
Yes, exactly.
Almost. Yeah, I try to like almost remember like my brain is so used to being anxious that when it's not anxious, it just looks for something to be anxious about. Sometimes when there's nothing to be anxious about. So I kind of just try to remember my brain will always look for something to be anxious about. That doesn't mean that there actually are things to be anxious about.
Let's see.
The
next question's at 8:15 SP. All right.
Oh, you can go.
Oh, all right. I don't want to take out the questions, but let's see. I know this is a personal question, but do you notice if the severity fluctuates at different times of the month, for example, around your period? I have heard people discuss this, so it's definitely something people experience. I personally don't notice that. For me, I notice more that depression for me is a problem around my period more than OCD. But yeah, I have heard other people talk about this though. So if it does fluctuate with your period, then you're definitely not the only one.
I've definitely heard that too, and I kind of do experience it. I never really thought about it. I kind of just like, oh, it is what it is. I never really like realized the coincidence of it happening, but like my intrusive thoughts usually get a lot louder around like the premenstrual time, and like they get louder and more aggressive, I've noticed. Not necessarily like all my OCD symptoms, but it's just specifically intrusive thoughts for me. But I've heard many people say that their OCD is affected by the hormones.
Mm-hmm. is it possible to forget that you have OCD once recovery occurs? Like, will you eventually be able to live a life without questioning?
That's kind of a tough question because some people say that like they've fully recovered from OCD. I'm not like, for me personally, I don't know if I'll ever get to like that space. I feel like the best I'll get to is being able to manage it, but I'm like, I mean, obviously I can't know the future, but I feel as though it'll always be something that has the possibility to pop back up. Right after intensive treatment, when my OCD was like at its best, like I wasn't as lily, I don't know how to explain it, but I wasn't struggling as much. So when I was at my best, I guess you could say, there were some days I did forget I had OCD, but then just like the nature of the beast, like certain things started popping up again. But I mean, it's kind of just like ebbs and flows. Like sometimes there will be like stretches of time where you can like forget you have it, and then something will come up, you'll be like, oh, there it is. But I mean, maybe it's possible. I don't think it's possible for me. I mean, I don't want to say that because that would be nice, but I'm not sure. I'm curious what you think, Elise.
Yeah, I honestly was a little sad when I read this question for like a lot of the same reasons you said. Literally almost exactly the same at some point. I agree. People reach different levels of recovery. Some people do describe it as they feel like they don't have OCD at all. A lot of people I know, it does not work out that way. When I was fresh out of treatment for the first time was the best I ever felt. I did feel like I didn't have OCD at that point, honestly. I'm not at that point currently. Could I be there someday? Maybe. Could you be there? Maybe, maybe not. It's uncertainty, but yeah, it looks different for everybody, so it's hard to say. But hopefully everyone gets to a point where they feel happy and able to deal with the OCD, even if it is still present. You want to read the next one, Maya?
Sure, if I could find it. Let's see. Okay. This next question from Don Russell, I don't really understand. It says he seems to get through the thoughts easier, but the questions are sex topics. He's 16 years old. He knows the meaning of the question, but searches for answer and asks for clarification, repeats. If you could give us a little bit more like context about this question, that would be helpful. To me, it seems like you're asking, you have a son or a child who has able to get through the thoughts more easily, but repeatedly asks for reassurance. Is that correct? Is that what you're getting, Elise?
So what I'm getting between this and the last comment that they left was that they have a history of OCD and have been doing better with it. But now they're asking questions about sexual topics, and it's a teenager, okay. So like that does make sense to ask. But I am a little, when I hear the word repeats, I'm kind of like, that could be a flag for OCD, because it's like, is it reassurance seeking or is it info seeking? So info seeking is like you're asking the question because there's actually a piece of information you don't know and want to know, where if you're repeating it, you might be repeating the same information, which then becomes more about reassurance. So I think it is something to keep an eye on for sure. So hopefully that answers their question.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was the same person who asked the question before.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time following these for some reason.
I know, it's a lot. And then new ones come in and bump the other people. You want to pause for the trivia questions?
Yes, trivia questions.
So now we need to scroll down to see who answers first. So we're going to do 2 trivia questions, and the people who win will get I sell mystery sticker packs in my shop, so you can get a random mix of stickers, and then here's like what some of them look like. We have It's Not All in Your Head, which is an advocacy one, and it's teal for OCD awareness. There is more to OCD. The pink elephant, if anyone has heard the pink elephant metaphor in therapy. So we'll ask 2 questions, and the first person to answer the trivia question in the comments will win, and you will be able to send an email to, hold on one second. Yeah, write the email. Okay.
I'll monitor the chat to see who answers first.
Oh, okay. Wait, no, that's us. I was like, oh no, CD's here. That's me. Just kidding.
I just realized that too, and then I was like, oh, I think you said that.
You'll email events@nocdhelp.com and let them know that you won. Okay, so the first question would be, one in blank children has OCD. So this is the statistic for how many children have OCD in the United States. Actually, no, I think this is the global number. So one in blank number of children have OCD. It's kind of hard.
I'm looking at the chat. I'm guessing there'll be somewhat of a delay. Okay, we have a first. So it's the first correct answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I see two answers.
So this is global. I said United States at first, but this is globally. It's not in the, no one has said it yet, so
yeah,
we're thrown out numbers.
You could win.
It is around 2%, but with the format of the question, it's one in a certain number. It is 200.
Yes.
So Kayasha, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, if you could email events@nocdhelp.com and let them know that you were the first person to answer the first trivia question correct and that you won the sticker pack. And then the other question is how it's the same question but for adults. So one in blank adults have OCD. And this is in the US.
Oh, we have a correct answer. SB.
Yes, there we go. SB.
Good job. It's 100.
All right, perfect. Yay. All right, so there's 100. 1 in 100 adults in the US have OCD, and 1 in 200 children globally have OCD. And also these facts can fluctuate a lot because they're always, well, one, because people aren't always open about having OCD. People don't always know that what they have is OCD, so we're trying our best here. But this is the newest stat that I found today, so yay. So I hope you enjoy the sticker packs, and yeah, so that'll be exciting. So then now we'll go back to the questions.
Nice. So,
and remember, you're never alone. Those statistics can remind you that you're never alone in your fight with OCD. All right, let's see.
I think it's Bailey Thompson.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay.
Okay. I have a therapist that says EMDR will prove if your memories are false. Is that true? My false memory is horrific. It definitely sounds like anything that will prove if your intrusive thoughts are true or false isn't a good therapy for OCD, because the trick is accepting uncertainty, and the best treatment for OCD is exposure and response prevention, ERP. So I definitely would say steer away from anything or anyone who says they can prove whether or not your fears or obsessions are true, because I feel as though that would probably just make them worse. Even though it sounds like it wouldn't, OCD is, the nature of OCD is that, like, even if you find out if your obsessions are true or false, like the OCD will still question it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with what Maya said, and I also see some people in the comments express the same thing. That doesn't sound like a compatible therapy for OCD, because your OCD will always find a way to question it, no matter what happens. Let's see. Is it better to treat OCD with or without meds? In other words, I know medication is used to help with the anxiety so that a person can go through therapy, but if meds are stopped, is OCD back? Okay, so, okay. I have been on medication and I've been off medication and been through therapy. I've done really well. When I was younger, I did really well without medication and going through I went through therapy without medication and I had really great results. I do take medication now and I've had good results with that. I have come off medication. So what's important to remember with meds is that they're very personal to everyone. Everyone reacts differently. Meds don't work for everybody. Sometimes things happen. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. There is no generalized advice for meds, especially because I'm not a doctor. Often, if you have been on meds, sometimes people can feel that their OCD comes back. But there are also people that stop meds and don't go back on them. So it could really go either way. It really depends on what happens with you personally if you were to be on medication and go off.
Yeah, it's just very personal. Exactly what you said, I would have said.
All right, numbers. Does anyone have any other questions? We'll give it a minute or two.
Okay, that's probably it.
Yeah, I think we got through all of them.
Yes. And if we didn't answer your question, feel free to ask it again and let us know.
This light is too bright. All right, there we go.
I'm watching the chat.
I know.
Are you able to see how many people are watching on my end? For some reason, I can't.
Yeah, I see. I can see it next to where it says live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have 25 people watching.
Well, that's exciting. Hi, everyone.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then I think that completes the live for tonight. And I know there are more lives planned for the rest of the week. And just to reintroduce, because I know some of you came on later, but my name is Elise. I run The Octopus, which is an OCD advocacy and recovery shop. Feel free to check us out. And thank you to NoCD for having us tonight. It's always a lot of fun to get to talk to other people who understand OCD and are beginning the journey of treatment, or maybe are just learning about it for the first time. But I really hope everyone got something out of attending and that we were able to make your night a little more interesting.
And I'll just reintroduce myself. My name is Maya. I'm an OCD advocate. I advocate on Instagram at Overcoming OCD. And yeah, thank you for having us. Oh, there are comments. There's one more question. Are you okay? Go answering it?
Yeah,
I know we kind of signed off, but
no, yeah, that's fine. This will be the last question, and then we'll sign off. So, with an intrusive thought as a normal, feel like you're stuck. Like, here we go again. Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The intrusive thoughts keep coming back with OCD. That's like a big characteristic of the disorder itself. So I definitely know, even like years apart, sometimes it'll come back and I'm like, oh, not this again. But then it goes away, as it always does. But yeah, I hope that helps. But yeah, definitely check out the rest of the lives that NoCD has this week. They run things all the time. Check out the support group, download the app. Great organization doing really great things. And thank you and have a good rest of your night.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.